Good afternoon, everyone. Kamal and I are here to make a brief statement, and I'm sure we'll have more to say later, and either tonight or tomorrow. But let me begin by thanking the press for being here and thanking everyone else. My fellow Americans, yesterday once again proved that democracy is the heartbeat of this nation, just as it has been the heartbeat of this nation for 2 centuries. And even in the face of a pandemic, more Americans voted this election than ever before in American history. Over 150 million people cast their votes. I think that's just extraordinary. And if we had any doubts, we shouldn't have any longer about a government of, by, and for the people. It's very much alive in America. Here, the people rule. Power can't be taken or asserted. It flows from the people, and it's their will that determines who will be the President of the United States, and their will alone. And now, after a long night of counting, it's clear that we're winning enough states to reach 270 electoral votes needed to win the presidency. I'm not here to declare that we've won, but I am here to report that when the count is finished, we believe we will be the winners. With all the votes counted, we have won Wisconsin by 20,000 votes, virtually the same margin that President Trump won that state 4 years ago. In Michigan, we lead by over 35,000 votes, and it's growing. A substantially bigger margin.
Well, the Democratic candidate there, Joe Biden, delivering that address. And of course, he is saying he's not calling the election. He's not saying that his party has won. He is basically saying that they are en route as far as securing 270 electoral college votes are concerned. We're going to cross over. We're going to have a discussion on the American elections. We're all interested. It's said that when the United States sneezes, the rest of the world catches cold. We're going to be discoursing with Dr. Eche Sikanku, international relations analyst, and also one who has keenly followed American elections over a while. He joins us via Zoom. Dr. Eche Sikanku, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining us on the AM show.
For the invitation. I'm happy to be with you.
Right. So we're going to try to make the most of the next how many minutes we have for this discussion. Let's hit the nail on the head. Now, in 1918, we had the Spanish flu pandemic. In 1920, there was an election. But somehow, the numbers, reduced. In 1920, there was a 20% reduction in the voting numbers. But in 2020, for the first time, we're voting in the midst of a pandemic, the world engulfed in it, yet the numbers have soared. 100 million people voting in advance. Did you expect that?
Well, that's not surprising. Yes, the historical antecedents are there, but then also there's technology. Things have changed. We're no more in the 1920s or in that century. So I think things have changed considerably as far as that is concerned. I was not also surprised, mostly because of the ability for people to send in votes through the mail, right? So, and that has been a staple of American political system. But that just came to fore in a much bigger way this time around. Just because of the pandemic, which is the background or the context within which this election took place. And so because people did not want to go out so much, people wanted to make sure that they were also thinking about their own health and all of that. A lot more people decided that they would take advantage of the early balloting system, the mail-in voting, rather than the in-person voting. So that is not a big surprise for me. I know people who have traditionally even voted by mail over the years, even when there was not a pandemic. So that was to be expected.
Right. now especially that you mentioned the mailing system, it has come to the fore because the current president, the incumbent Donald Trump, has criticized it, and he suggested in many ways that it could compromise the elections, that there was some attempt to steal the election through those who had voted ahead. What exactly are the complexities in there to take stock of?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. Donald Trump, if you've been watching him over the years, has had this kind of rhetoric over the years. That is classic Donald Trump. If you have analyzed his speeches, followed him over the past 4 years, he tends to be very erratic in his statements. He tends to be very bombastic in his statements, and he tends to exaggerate. A lot of fact-checking organizations have found that he lies most of the time and he stretches the truth most of the time. And so he really leans towards the more flowery part of language when he talks. Now, when you talk about the legal measures that he's thinking of taking, the Supreme Court and all of that, there are a number of things here. He's lived his whole life as a street fighter. Donald Trump is he likes going to court. He's lived his whole life suing people, going to court and all of that. He loves the litigation. He's a very contentious person, a very adversarial person, somebody who does not easily let go, somebody who likes the bullfight, and all of that. So that really is the person that we are dealing with. Do you get it? So we have to have that in mind when we are evaluating this kind of stuff. I've already painted his rhetoric. I've painted his approach or political attitude or behavior.
Right.
And then I've talked about his very historical antecedents.
So it was to be expected.
In the nature by which he does his work. So when such a person comes and says that I am taking the results to court, or the person says that I am not accepting the result, we have to view it within that context, right? He's pretty much throwing the kitchen sink. He loves the ninth fight.
Right.
The ninth fight.
I think that bit is pretty clear.
Throwing the kitchen sink at people.
Right.
So that really is who he is. But that does not mean that there are not legitimate grounds for a court process.
Right. Now I want us to do this.
If you feel aggrieved by the process, you do have the opportunity to address those grievances. The question is, are those legitimate or not? I'll let you come in. You wanted to say?
Yes. So I want us to wrap up on a few more points. Now, the electoral college system in the United States is interesting. Now, apart from maybe Maine and Nebraska, where you can share a few of the electoral college votes, all of the other votes go to the candidate that wins, that polls the most. Now, if you look at what the dynamics have been thus far and what Joe Biden has won, what Donald Trump has won in terms of states, what trajectory, what picture do you see being painted?
All right. So let me complete my thought on the court process. And then I'll get to that very quickly. So the thing is that if he decides, to go through that process, the first thing he has to do is to ask for a recount. And once that happens, he has to prove within the courts that there were legitimate grounds for the disenfranchising people before the process will be stopped. But to cherry pick and say that I'm going to the court to let the court let the process, then start counting the process just because it is not going in my favor, is not something that I think there's legitimate grounds for. So I was just trying to conclude my thoughts on that. Now, if you talk about the electoral college as it stands right now, I think it's a very interesting one. But see, basically, this is what has happened. In 2016, the Democrats talked about this whole blue firewall, and there was the expectation that because of Obama's 2008, 2012 victory, he did well in Wisconsin, he did well in Michigan. Basically, he did well in the swing constituencies or the battleground states. So there was an expectation that Hillary Clinton will at least hold on to what they like to call the Obama coalition and probably improve upon that in order to win. That was because in a lot of the swing states, the Democrats seem to have prevailed. So they called it the blue firewall or the blue wall because it was like that was their stronghold. The kind of like, yes, that was their stronghold. What happened in 2016 was that, unfortunately for the Democrats, that blue firewall did not hold. And Donald Trump managed to flip the so-called blue firewall, the whole Obama coalition. He pretty much destroyed that coalition, right? So that is how Donald Trump was able to get to the White House. He broke down the walls in Michigan. In Michigan, he broke down the walls in Pennsylvania. That was a Democratic state. They have not voted Republican in so many decades. Broke down in Wisconsin.
But my question, Dr. Sikankwu,
to the White House.
The thrust of my question would be looking at the facts and the figures, what we're seeing coming out of the states now. What picture is it painting, basically? That's the thrust of my question, so we can wrap it up.
So if you say what picture, it paints a picture of a country which has decided that whatever coalitions that Trump had, or whatever states he had overturned in, you interrupted me, so kind of destroyed my flow of thought. But what it means is that what Donald Trump was able to do in 2016 has not been able to replicate itself in 2020. Biden has been able to overturn Trump's advantages in Wisconsin, overturn his advantages in Michigan, overturned his advantage in Arizona. Yes, Arizona has changed. And so it just shows a change in America. It shows that the demographics are changing and the voting patterns are also changing. But more importantly for democracy, it also means that every time the will of the people is what always prevails.
Dr. H. Sikankwu, thank you very much for your time with us. We'll be crossing over to you, I'm sure, in the course of the elections as matters move forward.